Good morning to everyone out there in Facebook world. And I want to welcome everyone to this presentation I'll be giving about the Healthy Families Program. And this is my first Facebook talk, so I'm really excited, a little nervous, but I do hope I'll be able to share all of the information, or at least a good part of it, that I've learned over the years involved at CALM and involved with Healthy Families groups. So I want to just welcome everyone, and you've got my garden in the background. I don't think you could see it that well, but I'm here in my den at my home where I've been doing a lot of my work over the last year. So it's a nice opportunity to be able to meet with all of you and talk. And I do want everyone to participate. And so please write in the chat questions that you have at any time. And my colleague Michelle will be letting me know as the questions come so that I can respond to them. And it'll be a much more interesting talk, I think, if everyone is participating. So please throw out your comments and your questions. And I know there's some people in the audience that have a lot of experience in this field and have been involved with CALM for many years. So your input is very much appreciated. So just to start, my name is Sherry Robin, and I'm a licensed marriage family therapist. I've been at CALM now for 15 years. It's been a very good experience. I can remember when I first went and met with the managers there, Ellie and Deborah, and just, it's been a great 15 years there, and I hope it'll be many more. I have no plans to retire. So I'm a program manager with the Great Beginnings team, which is, we work with families from the birth of a child up until about 9 years of age. We work with the children and their families. And our model is very much a prevention model. And we try to work with children and families when the problems are very manageable, they're smaller, so that we can avoid further, much more serious problems in the future. And as part of that responsibility, I have worked with women's groups at CALM for many years. And most recently with the Healthy Families group, I've worked as one of the supervisors in the group. So I wanted to talk today about the Healthy Families groups and what they are. Traditionally, we've called these groups domestic violence support groups. And they were held in the CALM office in Santa Barbara, and they included groups for the women and then also groups separately for their children. And this year we decided, there was still a need for these groups, but we weren't ready yet to go back into the office. So we've been doing them over Zoom, and we started them about 10 weeks ago. And we have a Spanish group and we have an English group. And I do have to thank the people who've been working very hard with these groups this quarter, Maritza and Kayla, and Luz and Ariel, and Dora as the supervisor. They're the people that have really been with the women in the groups each week. And I've learned so much from what they've shared of their experiences. What I wanted to kind of define first is why did we call this Healthy Families? Why was it called domestic violence groups in the past? And basically, there's kind of a spectrum of what is a healthy family all the way to what is a family with domestic violence. And when we think of domestic violence, we think of very physical types of violence between a couple in a home, with hitting, with throwing things, with slamming walls. And that definitely does exist with many of our families in our groups. There's also, we include verbal abuse, where the partners are insulting each other, they're screaming each other, they're yelling at each other. And then there's also emotional abuse when you're belittling the other person, and making them feeling less than valued. So we kind of have a range of different types of problems in families. And domestic violence does include all those types, the emotional, the verbal, and also the physical abuse. So in the two groups we started about 10 weeks ago, we have one group for Spanish speaking moms and another group for English speaking group moms. And they meet on different evenings at 6 at night for about an hour and a half. And it's interesting because each group is very unique and each person brings a unique story to the group. And I think it's been very interesting for the other women in the group and the leaders in the group, and for myself to hear the different stories and the range of conflicts in a family. So there's one of the groups, I can say the Spanish speaking group, most of the women, and there's about 8 women who have been consistently coming, they, most of them are no longer living in the home with their spouse who was the perpetrator of the domestic violence. So they're a little bit of a step away, but they're still processing all the violence and the abuse that went on. And many of them are still having contact, even though much less, with the abuser because there are children involved and there's shared custody. There's other people in groups. I think in the English speaking group, there's more women who are still living with their spouse or their partner, and there still is possibly some incidences of abuse still being going on, even if it's just verbal and emotional or sometimes physical. So the groups are, each group is different, and the skill of the leaders of the group is to be able to, read and listen to the women in the group and see how we can make this group valuable for each member of the group, because everyone has different needs and different styles. Um, One of a key issue that is brought up is, and usually in the first session, is defining what is domestic violence and what is the range, and letting the women in the group give examples of the type of violence maybe they have experienced in their lives. Many times the women start talking about that they grew up in a home with their parents where there was domestic violence. And that has been a trauma that they've carried with them for many, many years. And, talking about the definition of what is violence, how to recognize it, and helping these women to realize they're not alone, that many people have experienced these difficult relations. Also early on, the issue of safety is brought up because we really want to make sure all these women are safe and they have resources. And so women are, kind of taught a little bit to recognize what are signs of abuse in the home, what can they do when they start seeing it happening and it begins to escalate. We talk about the safety of the children, what they can do. We talk about other resources in the community, anywhere from calling the police, calling 911, calling the access team with the Department of Mental Health. The other issue that quickly comes up in the discussion is the safety of the children in the home. And we talk about how domestic violence affects children. even little babies. I mean, I remember once doing a home visit in Santa Barbara at a trailer park, and where there was a young couple, and they had a newborn baby that was constantly crying and crying, and they were like, didn't know what to do. But in my discussion with the couple, it became apparent that there was a great deal of arguing that was going on and yelling. And I tried to explain to them that when even a young baby is exposed to a lot of stressful yelling and screaming, that does affect the baby. The baby does feel something, and older children feel it in different ways, and teenagers in other ways. So we do talk about the effects on their children and how we need to keep the children safe at all times.
Hey, Sherry,
Yes.
we have a question from the
Yes, please.
audience.
Okay.
Tara asks, how do you help women who don't understand that their relationship is abusive?
That's a really good question. Um, well, it's interesting because if they come to a group that's called a healthy family group or a domestic violence group, they must have some little thought in their mind that maybe something isn't right. And at least they've showed up at the group, or they've showed up in therapy to at least question their situation and talk about it. So I think that's a good sign. Um, I think the other thing is helping women in these groups or in individual therapy to help define what is a healthy family. Because even though this is a domestic violence group, the real goal is to help create healthy families where there's good communication, where people know how to talk about conflicts, and people know how to calm themselves when they become very angry, either by just walking out, closing the door in the bathroom and locking the door, deep breathing. So I think, to a certain point, everyone who's maybe experienced domestic violence does go through a period where they're not even really sure this is domestic violence. Maybe it's just a normal part of a relationship. So I think it's kind of a process um, of seeing your relationship or your family as having some unhealthy patterns. I hope that answered that, Tara, and please, continue to ask other questions and I'll try to explain a little better. But I think that's a good question. And I think at a certain point, we've all been there where we don't really immediately recognize, oh my God, I'm in a domestic violence situation. It's more of a process. Something doesn't feel right.
We
Um,
have one more question,
yes,
Sherry.
yeah,
Do we work with mothers prenatally?
that's a good question. Now, we do at CALM on my team do work with mothers prenatally. Yes, the answer, we do that. So because a lot of times women while they're pregnant, they may start feeling feelings of depression or anxiety or worry, about the pregnancy, about the relationship they're in. There could be some red flags early on. In the relationship and when the woman is pregnant. So yes, we would work with someone prenatally, and so anyone can join our groups when we have them, um, because it's very possible that there could be uh, domestic violence or types of abuse very early on, even before there's children. And I hope that answered that question. Um, some of the topics we talk about in the group, and you know, before I say what some of those topics are, I already did mention the definition of what is domestic violence, the issue of safety. We also talk about, the cycle of violence, you know, how it could look in your family, how it maybe could go through periods of calmness, and then a building escalation of conflicts. There could be a blow up, and then it could kind of calm down a while. You can go through like a honeymoon period where things everybody seems to be on their toes and things to be seems to be going better, and then it could start again. So we do talk about, there are different topics that are important, but I do have to say we do follow the lead of the women in the group. And that's the most important thing. Just like Tara, you brought up that question um, about what if you don't even recognize there's domestic violence. Women come to the groups with their own questions, their own experiences. So it's a really skilled leader, like the ones we've had at COM, are able to follow the lead of those people. We do talk about good communication skills in a family because the goal is to have a healthy family relationship. So that is discussed. Things like coping skills, mindfulness. I know the ladies did a number of like relaxation activities and meditations just to kind of help people gain their calmness, in difficult situations. They worked on building up the women's self-esteem, um, and believing in themselves. They did activities like having them write down some positive things about themselves, positive affirmations like, I really am a good mother, or I really try hard, or I'm working very hard to support my family, whatever they are, to build up the very positive feelings in that someone could have. Their feelings about being a mother. How does that play into all this? I can see the time is clicking, and I just want to add a few things that we've been able to do at CALM, which I think has been so wonderful, is although we're dealing with very tough topics, we wanted to bring to the groups a sense of kind of um, enjoyment or joy or calm. And I know the ladies did activities such as they made these little bracelets that they sent all the women little beads, different colored beads, little charms, and they made bracelets that kind of symbolized the narratives of their lives. And those were beautiful. It was an craft, it was kind of an art therapy type technique where the women could take their feelings, their experiences, both positive and negative, and actually put it into a little bracelet that they could wear, which symbolized the journey they've been going through. We've also done enjoyable things like at the meetings, have raffles to encourage people to come each time. And we used to have when it was in person at COM, we would have a joyful meal all together with the children and the families. And now that we're on Zoom, we have had a few times meals delivered, or the families picked up meals that were made by community catering companies and restaurants that donated these things to the women in our group. And it just gave them a little bit of joy. The women did decide in one of the groups to have an actual graduation ceremony, and they're going to do that at a park, and we're going to provide a meal. So I think the women really did. They became cohesive groups. Some of them exchanged phone numbers, and there's a friendship and support there that I hope that will continue as the after the groups end. And we do hope that we can, we probably will continue these groups and make them available because it has been a really a good experience, and we've gotten really good feedback from the women. And I think we've all learned as therapists a lot from them, and it's been very nice to be a witness to the transformation we've seen in the women. I want to thank everyone for coming. I know I could keep talking. There's a lot more topics that could be brought up. I probably only did maybe half of my outline. But I do want to thank everyone for coming and for listening to me. And I really appreciate it. And I hope to meet all of you in person one day soon. And thank you very much.
Gary, we have one more question.
Okay, yes, I can take that.
Is it appropriate to suggest calm to a friend or acquaintance they may believe be in a bad home environment?
Yes, yes, they can. They can. Anyone can call calm and for example, say, I'm in a situation with domestic violence. I have children. I think we need help. And there's a range of services we provide at CALM, anywhere from counseling, especially oriented on the children. And then we also do have groups. And we would probably also supply them with other resources in the community that also provide related services. So yes, people can call our main number or just come into the office and put in a service request.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to reach out to you directly, can they do that?
Yes, yes. Anyone, Michelle, can email me at CALM, or, if you don't have my email, Sherry Robin, you can just call CALM and they'll give you my contact information. And I'm always glad to talk to people. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle, for helping to make this possible.